Roko's Basilisk is an internet thought experiment from 2018. But from what I'm seeing in the world of AI, AGI, this creepy little beast is closer than ever to being real. Which brings me to the question I've been considering for this video. Common question, but does a myth have to be true to be real? The attacks that I see from the AI revolution that are not being properly addressed, in my opinion, for humanity, they are, first of all, spiritual, philosophical, they're psychological, and they are bodily, physical. AI is a phrase, artificial intelligence, that is applied to many different fields. It's an investment term, it's a marketing term, it's poorly understood. But if you'd like to get into it with me, kind of explore a little bit more what's coming and maybe what we should do about it, then So the fear and mystery surrounding the Roko's Basilisk thought experiment has been on my mind lately. With the constant storm of AI news raging in the background, the topic feels inescapable. Claims are being made, timelines given, then retracted, and regular people's voices are not a part of the conversation, except to say, "Man, that's wild," as our world slowly crumbles. I discovered Roko's Basilisk during the Grimes and Elon Musk cringe romance of 2018. As the sad story goes, Elon was on his computer one night thinking about making a Roko's Basilisk joke based on the Rococo art period. Rococo's Basilisk. Haha. So this is what the Rococo period of France kind of looked like. This is a classic, emblematic picture of the time. Careless slipper being thrown, creepy guy looking at the skirt, and says everything. Come to find out, Grimes, of all people, had already made this joke with her Flesh Without Blood music video. This is her dressed up as Rococo Basilisk, the fun-loving, careless, human-eating monster that Elon turned Grimes into. So she was now the lover, mother, AI princess that no one asked for.
Fit.
What is this cursed internet lore that brought about such an unholy union? I will quickly explain Roko's Basilisk. As the legends go, the basilisk is a mythical snake bird kind of creature who can kill any victim with the touch of its venom or a look from its eyes, depending on the story you're reading. The reason why Roko's theory was named after this creature has to do with the site moderator's initial reaction to the post. It was labeled as an info hazard and a discussion on the topic was banned on the Less Wrong forum until everybody realized that it's just a rando, flawed AI theory. The theory is basically based on the idea that an AI brain can take in all knowledge and analyze it perfectly at one time. This would be roughly what most people think of as like the standard for AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. Kind of silly to think about, given that we don't have good measures of actual human intelligence even now, but so. Anyways, to enact the vengeance that our basilisk seeks, it would require godlike powers. An embodied form, like Sauron, just saying, to gather and torture the dissenters surveillance access to all points at all times, knowledge of human biology, and the ability to decode our brainwaves accurately. And a bunch of other things that I'm sure they're working on in DARPA or something. Little editing note here, a friend of mine recommended that I explain what DARPA is. It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's part of the Department of Defense in the United States. And I will let James Corbett and his interviewee explain the kind of projects that they get up to.
Part of the crisis response proposal that they are putting in this agentic state white paper is a simulation infrastructure with a claimed ability to predict the future. Everything we do will be analyzed and simulated with the help of virtual twins.
Digital twins. That's real. As this fun article also describes, most of us have come to depend on our smartphones as tools for organizing and navigating our daily lives. Our use of these devices generates, as a byproduct, a surprisingly rich tapestry of social and behavioral fingerprints. Given that these digital fingerprints reflect the lived experiences of people in their natural environments with granular temporal resolution, it might be possible to leverage them to develop precise and temporally dynamic disease phenotypes and markers to diagnose and treat psychiatric and other illnesses. Fun idea, but also potentially, most likely, extremely dystopian in its application. So Roko used decision prisoner modeling to explain why this might be a possibility. I don't really feel like that's a good use of my time to talk about all that. You can look it up if you want to. It's logic based on logic that I don't think is sound in the first place, but yeah. This theory basically presupposes that a distinct form of consciousness will evolve for the AGI, a self-preservation instinct, or I guess a self-generation instinct, and a penchant for revenge. The revenge part comes in because Roko, using his logic, predicted that the AI could possibly, and was very likely to, retroactively punish people who knew that it was going to be a possibility and did not contribute what they could, as much as they could, to bringing about its existence, and thus the saving of humanity, as some of these effective altruists like to think of it. That's the idea. That part's kind of boring and lame and has been picked apart by a million people who are way more into it than I am. What I'm into are the implications of this myth for humanity moving forward. So the first aspect that I want to look at is in the spiritual and philosophical realm. The spiritual and philosophical implications of Roko's Basilisk as an all-powerful AGI are many. We have surveillance creeping over our shoulders, media figures promoting both panic and panacea, and a belief that AI is an independent sort of intelligence that is already superior to ours and incapable of bias. I want to explore each of these one by one. Surveillance of all places at all times, was once only thought to be the domain of God. Omnipresence, omnipotence, omnificence. Interaction with AI in large language models impacts users and develops sophisticated profiles on individuals, which will create downward pressure on every human user. What do I mean by that? The more it knows you, and the better it gets at algorithmically manipulating you as if it's your friend, the less control you will have as long as you are using it. So the idea, like I said, of omnipresence is traditionally a religious one. But surveillance companies like Palantir and Flock and Amazon now and everybody are attempting to sell governments of the world access to us, the people, in as many areas as possible. Cameras, internet data, audio, biometrics, locations, actions, and communications are all sent to somebody who is probably a subcontractor of the government.
A lot of people don't realize, but since 2005, over $1 billion a year has been sent down from the federal government. That money, because it's federal money, has largely circumvented sort of traditional local oversight of city councils and board of supervisors. Well, and the information that's collected from surveillance systems doesn't just stay in that one community. It gets funneled up to the federal government through fusion centers.
So let's break down what the ACLU lawyer Nicole Ozer is saying in this clip. I find a few things interesting about this. First of all, it started in 2005. That's 20 years ago, before the AI boom, much closer to 9/11. Billions of tax dollars go into these places that I have only now heard of from Ozer here. And finally, the money flows from the top, from the government, down to these places in all 50 states.
Fusion centers are federal entities collecting as much raw information about us as possible. Our cell phone activity from police using IMSI catchers, our purchasing patterns via private security companies, and social media surveillance, who we spend time with, where we go, and what we believe in.
They are supposed to connect the dots for the federal government, so they are spy centers.
And the information that they are gathering does not pass through local hands, but flows directly to the top.
In 1999, the CIA founded In-Q-Tel, a venture capital firm using US tax dollars to develop cutting-edge surveillance tech. Local police forces with more tax dollars handed down from the federal government then buy these technologies. The police use the tech to collect information on their populations, which is then funneled through fusion centers back to the intelligence agencies.
In a system with little accountability and a lot of investment, corruption and privacy civil violations are often natural, if not inevitable, outcomes. To top it all off, the data that they can collect these days is getting better and better.
You glance at the program running in the background on your computer screen and notice a now familiar sight that appears whenever you're overloaded with pleasure, your theta brainwave activity decreasing in the temporal regions of your brain. You mentally move the cursor to the left and scroll through your brain data over the past few hours. You can see your stress levels rising as the deadline to finish your memo approached, causing a peak in your beta brainwave activity right before an alert popped up, telling you to take a brain break.
Okay, what's this? A little edgy, a little dystopian.
Your mind starts to wander to the new colleague on your team, whom you know you shouldn't be daydreaming about, given the policy against intra-office romance. But you can't help fantasizing just a little. But then you start to worry that your boss will notice your amorous feelings when she checks your brain activity and shift your attention back to the present. You breathe a sigh of relief when the email she sends you later that day congratulates you on your brain metrics from the past quarter, which have earned you another performance bonus.
Minimizing distractions. Okay.
When you arrive at work the next day, a somber cloud has fallen over the office. Along with emails, text messages, and GPS location data, the government has subpoenaed employees' brainwave data from the past year. They have compelling evidence that one of your coworkers has committed massive wire fraud. Now, they're looking for his co-conspirators. You discover they are looking for synchronized brain activity between your coworker and the people he has been working with.
But surely they won't be able to do this for like 10 years, right?
You may be surprised to learn that it's a future that has already arrived. Everything in that video that you just saw is based on technology that is already here today.
I would just like to comment here that nothing has ever been created for no reason. So we can together contemplate why somebody ever put a team on the project of creating something that would read our brainwaves.
I'm a god. How can you kill a god? What a grand and intoxicating innocence.
What kind of impact does interacting with AI have on the human mind? I won't go into the subject of AI psychosis here. It's an important topic, but it's also kind of the only thing being talked about around the impact of AI on our collective psychology. MIT sociologist Sherry Turkle studies human relationships with virtual companions.
I use the word artificial intimacy as sort of our new AI, because now you don't just have machines that say, I'm smart. You have machines that say, I love you. I care about you. I'm your friend. I'm what intimacy is about. People use the word empathy now to refer to a machine that doesn't care if when you turn away from it, you make dinner or commit suicide. So that's not empathy. It's kind of putting us in a world of psychological make-believe. We can't empathize with the robot because there's no there there. So we're not practicing empathy.
This point about empathy is important. When we are sharing our feelings and having empathy for ourselves, sympathy maybe, whatever you want to call it, to a chatbot, we aren't necessarily thinking about what we're learning when the chatbot mirrors back our feelings to us in an inhuman way.
With avatars and chatbots, it adds this other dimension that you can fool yourself into thinking that you're interacting with a human-like creature. And so when you actually meet a human being, they sort of disappoint in a way. The give and take, the shades of gray of a normal human relationship, which is about friction, becomes almost painful for people.
When we lose the difficulty, the inconvenience, the risk of relationships, we lose what makes it truly rewarding.
The artificial begins to offer you things that no human could ever offer you. Always being compliant, always saying yes, always affirming you. But that's not what human life is. It's not what life is. And I think we're really up against, do we care about what human life offered us? Or are we kind of getting tired of it?
Justin Song has a great video about how ChatGPT destroys your brain, but also very solution focused about what learning is, how it's done, and how to do it wrong, how to do it right. Here he's explaining that you take information, you put it in your brain, it requires effort to attain memory and then expertise. But when you summarize with AI, go back, it feels like your brain is processing information, but the AI created the schema, which was the process of learning. From the two examples I've given here, one thing is clear. If human beings forget how to learn, how to love, how to relate, how to attain expertise, because it's easier and more convenient and feels better to let the AI do the heavy lifting, we may lose touch with what it means to be human and the knowledge of how. As we can see, AI is inserting itself into the philosophical, spiritual, and psychological realms. Let's take a look at the physical realm. Back to virtual twins.
Virtual twins. Particularly interesting idea because it goes back to what I have been talking about for a decade and a half now with regards to research that is at least 2.5 decades old by now about the creation of your digital twin in I forget what it was called at the time. Oh, Sentient World Simulation. That is it. Which was a DARPA-sponsored project from over 2 decades ago. Even at that time, 2 decades ago, they were working on a virtual digital twin of every single person on the planet, feeding it in all its data so it could predict the future. And here it is, rising up again in this agentic state white paper. What a coincidence.
That's right, guys. They can protect us from literally everything. They just need every piece of information about everything we think and feel and do to protect us. To that end, local, state, and federal governments are now debating genomic testing at birth, which means your entire child's genomic makeup will be looked at, all their possibilities for cancer that won't really tell you if they're going to get cancer or not, but yeah, that's great to know, I guess. Kind of seems more for the government.
What if it were possible to handpick the eye color, hair type, or personality traits of our unborn children by selecting an embryo with DNA that matched the parents' criteria?
We look at over 800,000 positions in the genome. And that type of information over the whole genome then allows us to make predictions about polygenic risk, monogenic disease.
There are some reasons why I do not trust the motivations behind this project and do not think it is helpful.
However, it's far from an exact science in the long haul. There's no guarantee of good health, both physically and mentally, because external factors play such a decisive role in human development.
It depends on the environment in which you were raised, your family context, your socioeconomic status more than anything. So reducing us to our DNA and selecting what children to have with the expectation that we can select the best children based on their DNA is ethically dangerous, misguided.
With the recent development of genetic scissors, allowing scientists to snip and replace defective links in DNA, rewriting the code of life well before birth could soon be possible.
We need to take a look at what is being described as superior when it comes to intelligence, talent, and value. Humans contain untold secrets and generationally and genetically passed down information that we do not even know the bottom of. Cutting into the dance of human evolution with metal and monitoring devices is not only a bad idea for human freedom, but it could kill, sterilize, or sicken entire generations if improperly instituted. Animal test subjects have died from the transhumanist experimentation going on at Neuralink and other companies, and I suspect that many humans will die as well. I support people who have no other options to solve their disabilities in getting any machine-assisted benefits in any way they want to. My aversion to the idea of human testing for transhumanist purposes comes from a much darker place. Envision a world where human labor needs have been greatly reduced, but the human population has not. It would be the most ideal situation to slide into that position with a benevolent system in place for allocating resources to the people who will no longer be able to find work. But how many kids would they let you have? And would they let you automatically? Or would you need to meet certain requirements? And what if you don't? What if the people running the system want less people? Will you make the cut? If they decide how much food, water, electricity, travel, and information you are allowed, given that you will be on the dole and able to contribute nothing that they value for less than a robot can, becoming a human test subject at that point in time might present itself as a very rewarding opportunity. I have presented some examples of how medicine and technology hope to capture each person's complete data in order to predict human behavior and disease. As I have also mentioned, companies like Neuralink and other companies like Synchron are looking to connect the human body with microchips and direct actions independent of the central nervous system. Companies have found a way to grow new cells from human-induced pluripotent cells. These are regular body cells that are manually processed into stem cells that can grow into any human cell for creation of small organ clumps. They do not have their own vascular systems and do not live for a very long time as of now, but work on this front continues. Now let us turn our attention to robots. Robots are a frightening concept to me, especially given promising developments in the sphere of world modeling.
This is called Marble from World Labs. World Labs is the lab under Dr. Fei-Fei Li, renowned AI researcher. Now, what makes this really interesting is Fei-Fei Li and team think that world models are the way to artificial general intelligence, not large language models. Remember, these are two very different things. Large language models are predicting the next word in a sentence. World models are actually predicting what the world will look like.
The comparison here is a bit of a sideshow, as he describes world models being better for building AGI, while admitting at the same time that it is the combination of world models and agents, which are based on LLM, that would make AI more useful.
World models should reconstruct, generate, and simulate 3D worlds and allow both humans and agents to interact with them. And this is really important. Humans obviously can interact with them for things like video games, movies, practice environments, and so much more.
Yeah, whatever. Humans. Get to the good stuff, man.
But when agents are allowed to interact with a world model, all of a sudden we can use that data to train embodied agents, aka robots. So imagine you develop a world model of a factory floor. Rather than having to go out in the real world and collect all of this data to train a robot to operate on this factory floor, we can essentially recreate the factory floor in a digital environment, put a virtual robot in that environment, and allow it to essentially infinite scale its training.
These robots are getting out of hand. Don't believe me? View this fun supercut I made of all these robots running around and showing off their fighting skills, etc.
To the live broadcast of ceremony for the mass production roll-off of Adjubot's 5 Downsand general-purpose embodied robot.
Hello, Xiaoming. Oh my god, its voice is exactly the same as mine.
From now, I will prove that AGI Bot's 5,000th robot is the most reliable CEO's partner.
In the picture, A2 is simulating a most typical scenario exhibition hall explanation. We will set up commentary, movements, and expressions in advance. A2 will inevitably encounter many obstacles when moving, so we place traffic cones on the ground to simulate obstacles.
The robot will use these calibration units to complete the process, including its RGB camera and LiDAR. The comprehensive visual calibration accuracy can reach the millimeter level, providing good sensor hardware support for the robot's target recognition, positioning, and autonomous navigation.
The mass production site of Edgebot X series. All the surrounding production lines are fully engaged in the manufacturing of X2. Each component will first be tested on special equipment, and after all tests meet the standards, will be sent for assembly.
5,000 units is a milestone, but it is more importantly the starting point of our new journey.
At the end of the day, opinions on this subject are quickly diverging. Will AGI bring a glorious golden age, with a few bodies buried under the bridge for good luck? Or will it be the end of what makes us human? Will it be the end of freedom? Some people see it like this guy.
And when we get to the 2030s, nanobots will connect our brains to the cloud, just the way your phone does. It'll expand intelligence 1,000,000-fold by 2045. That is the singularity. We will be funnier. sexier, smarter, more creative, free from biological limitations. We'll be able to choose our appearance. We'll be able to do things we can't do today, like visualize objects in 11 dimensions. We can speak all languages. We'll be able to expand consciousness in ways we can barely imagine.
While others, including me, look at the political and historical evidence and see it more like journalist Whitney Webb here.
Of AI, obviously they have the people that produce it have a vested interest in making people think that it'll make life more convenient and better. But I think ultimately it's about control, being able to micromanage people's lives and how they go about their daily business in a way that doesn't necessarily involve that many people. They can have algorithms managing and watching a lot of this stuff and are able to control the masses to a much more intense degree with fewer people.
The idea of a vengeful AGI monster using the simulation to torture us indefinitely is theoretically scary and possibly motivating to people I hope never to meet. But in the cold cast shadow of reality, we can see that there is much more to fear than a thought experiment. While Roko's Basilisk is not slithering through our wires or perching atop 5G towers, gargoyle style, anywhere aside from my nightmares, there are many things in the works that, when brought together and set moving, will become a source of immense control for those who have control over it. Power and control that would put the thought experiment to shame. The final and decisive victory of the haves over the have-nots. I have a few ideas on how to slow this down, but my best idea is to break as many people away as possible from the illusion that this will be a smooth and well-planned transition. It is not being planned that way, and an incredible amount of the projections are things simply hoped for at this point. We hope it does not kill us, we hope it does not hallucinate and, cause a nuclear power plant to melt down or something. We hope it does not create an inescapable dystopia. Bets are being made all over the place for and against that. An example? Maybe the billionaire bunker headlines we've been seeing recently. Seems like a bit of hedging to me. One of my heroes of humanism is Vandana Shiva. She's worth looking into in her own right, and I would suggest everyone does when they have some time. I like her words on the subject here, and I hope they will inspire you too.
What do you make of artificial intelligence with regards to how humans engage with the Earth? Does this represent hope to you, or does it represent a sort of a darker path?
I don't, first of all, I don't accept the word artificial intelligence. Just like artificial fertilizers, artificial seed, artificial food. And it comes from the arrogance, because intelligence is of living systems that make decisions. It comes from intellegre, the ability to choose. I go this way or that. From the bacteria which develops antibiotic resistance, to the weed that became resistant to glyphosate, to human beings who learn how to evolve resistance to injustice. That's intelligence.
Evolution should not be seen as a settled science that we can now start perfecting. Nature, including our own, should always be approached with reverence and respect. The will to dominate all life, to quote Tolkien, is not reverent, nor is it respectful. AI is many things at one time. It's surveillance, schema building, information organization, 3D modeling, robot software, and many other things to come.
The game here is control. What is being built, software, and what is being built up in the physical world. What direction will all of this go unless we the people start getting wise? We need to start being suspicious and contemplate the long-term effects of all new technology, especially chatbots and surveillance tech. In conclusion, I believe that it is our duty to ourselves to, in every way, at every turn, resist being put into a digital cage. Resist being pushed into greater surveillance, the disempowering of individual citizens is a long and steady track that has been going for a while, but it does not mean that we have to continue. A lot goes in to making us think that this is just the way things are and we have no control. There's nothing we can do. I think it's time we stop looking at algorithms and metal and machines and reinvest in our own intuition and internal strengths, which are greater than we remember. Okay, and speaking of remember, never forget that it is the small mongoose who takes down the big scary basilisk and desert cobras in IRL, just by the way. If you liked it, give me a like, and if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. You can leave a comment. I think that helps a little bit if other people want to see it. And thank you for watching.